Fathers Who Bother is made possible in part by the contributions of listeners like you. To support Fathers Who Bother, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Fathers Who Bother and become a monthly subscriber today. For the 50th episode of the Fathers Who Bother podcast, I invited my fellow hip-hop journalism dads, Jesus Trivino of TIDAL, Rob Markman of Genius, and Chuck Creekmur of allhiphop.com to talk about the state of fatherhood in hip-hop, how they juggle their careers with parenting, and much, much more. Check it out. Welcome to Fathers Who Bother, a podcast for men who are dad as we want to be. We are now about to record the 50th episode of this podcast, a milestone that I wasn't sure we'd reach. And, you know, the hip hop guy I started thinking about 50 and milestones. And I thought about Tony Touch's Power Cypher when he had the mixtapes with the 50 MCs dropping 50 freestyles. And while I think having 50 dads would have been a bit much, I really thought it would be great to gather some of my personal favorite people who happen to be dads and talk about their experiences with fatherhood. So I invited a few of my fellow journalism vets. Start with Jesus Trivino, Senior Director of Global Latin at TIDAL. My brother Chuck Creekmur, co-founder and co-CEO of allhiphop.com, author and producer, and Rob Markman, VP of Content Strategy at Genius and one of the dopest MCs out right now. If you did not know, go check that out. Please welcome all of them to the podcast. How are you doing,
gentlemen? Good, great.
We're doing great. First of all, independent allhiphop.com. I think.
Thank you, my brother.
The hippest trip in America, the longest running.
I was gonna say, Jerry, thank you for the MC comment too. The check is in the mail, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, whatever. You're getting name dropped in disc records, man.
I'm saying, man, Rob Markman is more known now for MCing than anything. You know, but we know the origin story of this Superman. We know the origin story. The grind.
I was looking at a picture of us from back in the day with all of us in the same room. Elliot was, it was a crazy room. Shaheem, Elliot, it was at a Snoop Dogg event.
Okay. Yeah. The one I always find is I think it was a Raekwon listening that had a lot of us there. There's like,
I remember that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So I wanted to start just generally, you know, a big part of what motivated me to do this podcast was the perceptions of men in hip hop and the idea that, you know, there were all these absentee fathers. You're seeing stories about this dude owing child support and getting arrested after a concert for back child support. I'm like, this is not the narrative. This is not what I see. You know, when artists would come to my office to do interviews, they had their kids with them. So I wanted to ask you about the narrative of fatherhood and parenting in hip hop. Has it evolved to you? If it hasn't, why do you think it hasn't? And if it has, what do you think is contributing to that?
Well, I think it has evolved greatly. I remember once upon a time, just about every rap album had at least one song dissing their dad. You know, there was a lot of a thread that, you know, there were absentee fathers from a lot of the guys in the 90s. And so that seemed to be, you know, reoccurring. And then on the flip side, mothers always got generally a song, most notably Tupac's Dear Mama, but there were others as well. So I think that a couple of things have happened. One, I think we're trying to break cycles. Two, I don't think it's seen as somehow contrary to hip hop to be a dad. Back then, guys obviously had kids, but they weren't necessarily putting that out there on the front lines. And so I think it's changed greatly. You see now kids are coming out of great homes. They are celebrating their kids graduating from college, showing loving pictures like Dave East, for example. And I think it tells the younger era they can do the same.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, I think even beyond the music, it's social as well. I mean, if you look at the era that most of us here were raised in, and really the music that we grew up on was a product of the crack era, which just broke families and broke homes in general, so, reeling from that. And, I think in the 80s into the 90s, it was a lot of the music was trying to heal from the crack era and break the bonds that or fix the bonds that was broken. And that, and we had songs like Ed O.G., and the Bulldogs, like Be a Father to Your Child, like that resonated. Even something like, it might be a little corny now, but like, Shaquille O'Neal, like, what I'm saying? Like the song about his dad, or Will Smith had the Just the Two of Us. Like there was always artists, I think, trying, and you would even hear like Illmatic, right? Which is for many considered the best hip hop album of all time. Nas is shouting out Destiny on The World Is Yours, To Name My Daughter. Pick word best to describe my life, to name my daughter. Like, so I think it was always there, to the point where we see kids on album covers. You see Cameron with his kid on Come Home With Me. You see Game with his kid on his album cover. Like, it's a bunch of it. So yeah, to back up what Chuck said, I think hip hop as a music for, in a lot of different reasons, but childhood, and fatherhood, it was meant to kind of break the curses that were put on us in the crack era.
What you, Jesus?
I mean, I think it makes sense, because just like the genre, the performers are matured. Like it only makes sense. Like, and just like Rob was saying, got to correct the ills of the past. And I do remember Ed O.G. That's the first one that pops in my head. Be a father to your child on Video Music Box. But yeah, I think it's definitely that. Definitely in the Black and brown communities, we've now it's cool to be a dad. So, yeah.
How much of a role do you think social media has played in that amplification?
Oh,
because now we can actually see their kids, if they feel like it,
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's a big part, because it's sort of like, this is a representation of you. This is an extension of the type of man that you are, and the way you raise that child is your legacy, right? So I think it's definitely social media that played a big part of promoting your child.
There's a lot of reward in that too, getting, just like the reward of getting 1,000 likes or whatever people get off on social media, it's amplified when you're representing yourself as a good dad or a loving spouse or whatever the case may be. I think that people enjoy those rewards, so they post that or represent that because it is something that is seen as even kind of wholesome, or at least balances out some of the other stuff that's out there.
And yeah, to add on to that, I think it's a way to show that I made it. You know what I'm saying? To be able to show my family, and we see this in a lot of ways, right? Like hip hop is so aspirational as a music. So yeah, on social media, I'm gonna show off my chain or the diamonds that I got from Elianse, because that shows that I made it. Or I might show the stack of money, or I might show the new car, the new house I bought. And all those things are material and have their own reasons. But I think to also show like, yo, I got my kid right here with me. They're good. I'm able to provide for them. It's about showing off the things that we didn't have when we were younger. So, it's dope to see, what I'm saying, kind of folks showing off their kids.
It's funny too, because Jay does that to the extreme, right? He'll be like, "Oh, just lean on that Basquiat, you own it." You know what I'm saying? he be taking it to the next level. But,
yeah, he got Blue a writer credit or a production credit before she could walk.
Definitely.
So pivoting a little bit, this is my favorite question, one I usually lead with on the podcast, is tell me about the time you found out you were going to be a dad for the first time.
Well, I'm a dad for the first time and last time. That's a good question. I do know this. When I was married, we had a date set, and in the midst of our engagement, found out we were pregnant. I don't remember the exact moment, but I do know that it changed a lot. We sped up the wedding. We moved the date to another date, which is the same as another friend of ours named Black Spot. So we actually got married on the same day.
Oh, wow.
But I was actually really excited, man. Even though it did cause a little bit of, calamity, I guess, but I was really excited to know that my daughter was coming, because I'm an overthinker. So I could have gone 10 years without purposely trying to have a kid. You know what I mean? So the fact that she came unexpectedly worked out, because otherwise I couldn't tell you. I was grinding so hard. I don't know when I would have had a kid. So right. I'm glad she came the way she did.
What about you, Rob?
Sure. For me, if I'm be honest, I probably knew at the moment of conception, like that was the one. It wasn't a big surprise for me, and it was funny because we weren't trying, because I think, like what Chuck said, like you never feel like you're ready, like you always find a reason to put it off. Okay, like let me just stack this much bread, or let me have my crib first, or let me have my career cemented first. Like there's always a reason to put it off because it's very scary. So I wasn't trying in that sense, but we was taking a lot of chances at the same time. So when it happened, like I pretty much knew it, like, oh yeah, that did it. I don't know, it's something in the air, man. That one felt different that one time.
You sound like a rapper, Rob.
Well, that's because, Jesus be putting me on the Latinx Flow playlist on TIDAL, man. It's way up, and this is where we at now.
Right. And Jesus.
So my story is obviously different than these two fellows here.
Yes.
My wife and I were trying for like years, and first off, this is a topic. Infertility and adoption is a topics that we do not talk about in the Black and Brown community.
Mm-hmm.
And when we finally decided to go the adoption route, it took like a year and a half. But when we started it, everyone was telling us, it was like, oh, you guys have no problem. You guys are Latino. You're bilingual. You have great careers. Easy. Next thing you know, it's like a year and a half. We're like, yeah, we're not finding anything. What's going on? But what we did, found the birth mother. It happened like exceedingly fast. It happened within like a couple of months. And when I did find out, I was like, we were ready, because it's kind of the opposite of you guys, because we were waiting so long. Right. And our money was right, thankfully. Our mindset was right, because we had done so much, other stuff. We traveled, we go to all these tons of events, and like, we're ready to settle down. So when we found out, and I was like, yo, let's go. I'm ready. Like we were both like, this is it. So it's definitely different than the normal experience, I would say.
So what was
wait, real quick though,
sure.
You have a beautiful story, and you say it's different from the normal experience, but I love you sharing that story, because I think you sharing that story normalizes the experience. Right. And millions and millions of families. I don't have the statistics. I'm not going to pretend that I know, but it is a normal way to become a parent.
I don't
normalize that. That's a beautiful story.
You're totally right. Yeah, I don't want to, but it's different. It's just different. It's a different. It was my path to become a parent. It's not different. I mean, it is different than yours, but it's my journey, just the way it was, your journey to be where you are in your life. So yeah, and then also like the other thing is with adoption is, after 45 days, the birth mother can decide like, yo, I don't want to do this.
Really?
Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, so that was a big thing, but I think my wife did a really great job at. We both did a good job at basically letting her know, like, your daughter, the baby's gonna be in good hands with us. Like, we're gonna love her. Like, we're gonna teach her. Like, her biggest thing was the culture, was making sure that we pass on Latinx culture to the daughter, and that we speak Spanish, in which we both do. Obviously, we love our culture. So after the 45 days, that's why I actually didn't post on social media. I didn't post as much as I wanted to. I didn't post her face until after the 45 days. After the 45 days, I'm like, yo, this is my beautiful baby. Yo, because I was like, because if you see my thing, it's like on my social media, it's literally work Selena, and I try not to do super crazy, but I'm like, yo, all these years of me seeing kids going to first day of school, the tricycle, and I'm like, or shutting off my social media on Father's Day. I'm like, yo, it's my time now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
He said, I'm making up for all that time. So I want to start this next question with you, Jesus, because it's particularly poignant. What was it like when you got her home and was able to be with her for the first time?
I mean, it was holding a treasure. It was like holding like the most. I'm trying to get emotional over here. You're trying to make me cry. It was the best feeling in the world. I mean, she weighed nothing, right? But she weighed everything. So we wanted, obviously come home here, protect her, and just we had everything ready for her. Like we our second bedroom, which was initially like my wife's shoe closet and my sneaker closet. We had to take all that stuff out and make it into a nursery. It was just the best feeling in the world, and I know I was when she was born, like I yelped. I don't even know how I could yelp, but I yelped. And
I thought only dogs yelped. That was a thing.
I yelped like a dog, or I yodeled like Shakira. I don't know. I yodeled. Something came out of my mouth. But no, it was amazing. Like, and to see, just see her, hold her, and see how happy my wife was. It was out of this world. So,
Chuck, what was it like when you got Maya home from the hospital?
It was crazy because Maya was born in New York, so I drove slower than I've ever driven in my life from the hospital. I had a big truck at the time, a Navigator with 22-inch rims, and I was driving like I was just starting or something. And yeah, it was a beautiful thing, man. Until about 10 years ago, she thought that truck was bulletproof, because I used to tell her, this is a bulletproof truck, so you're always protected. And I did a speech and she was there, and I accidentally let it slip out like that it wasn't bulletproof. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm that type of protector, man. And I had a fatherhood column in another website, and that helped me, kind of it kept me on point, it kept me, sharing as well, what I was going through as a dad, and honestly as a divorced dad, because at that particular time I was going through divorce too. So a lot of things me and my daughter, we learned together. So I know I'm a little off topic, but it's what I'm getting at is just like, I just felt like a sense of I was her bodyguard, essentially. At that point when we started on the way home, I realized that was my duty and role in her life.
Wow. What about you, Rob?
It was a while before we were able to take my first son, Andre, home, because my wife had him via C-section. So for that, they keep the women in the hospital a little longer, and the babies along with them. I remember he was born, I feel like 11 o'clock at night, or maybe she started going into labor around 11. And basically he was born, but they wouldn't let me stay overnight. I had to go home. Couldn't stay. I guess it was the fathers just couldn't stay.
Right.
So I remember going home and knowing that my son had been in the world, but not. It was a little bit of a hopeless feeling, because knowing that my wife had went through, first of all, birth just in general is like this tremendous feat, right, that women go through. So her going through that, and the C-section takes a real physical toll on you. And knowing that I couldn't help it, there was this helpless feeling when he was born, and I kind of stayed up all night. I didn't get any sleep. Went to the hospital the next morning to go visit them, and it was funny. I had a show. I was always balancing my career. At this time, I'm working in the mailroom during the day, freelancing for magazines at night. I'm hitting Jesus up, trying to get like Scratch magazine articles and stuff like that. So I'm doing that at night, and I still have my aspirations and dreams of being an artist. So the day after my son was born, the night after, me and my boy, who I was in a group with, we were opening for Slick Rick. And
what?
Yeah, I was gonna cancel the show or at least have my boy. There was enough solo material for my boy to do it alone without me. But the hospital wouldn't let me stay past 9 o'clock. And I still felt kind of like whatever. I hadn't slept. And my wife was like, boy, if you don't go do that show, like they're not gonna let you stay here anyway, like go do that show. So it was almost like this 24-hour thing where I didn't sleep. My son was born, and 12 hours later or whatever, it felt like one day because I didn't sleep. I'm opening for Slick Rick, and it was crazy. I was tired as hell, but the adrenaline was on 10, and it was all that and the worry about kind of taking care of my family. But a couple of days later, they let them out the hospital. We took them home. Everything was all good.
So you touched on it a little bit, Rob, but where were you all career-wise, and how did becoming a dad impact you professionally?
Ooh, I was broke. Real quick. I was broke. Like I was living with my parents. I was working in the mailroom. I was freelancing. The money that I would get from freelancing as a journalist, I never touched that money. I would use that because we were saving up to buy our own crib. But yeah, it was tough. Like, I was 25. I was still living at home. You know what I'm saying? And it was tough. But it worked out.
All right.
Yeah, I actually wasn't broke at that time, but I was working. I was basically working 3 jobs by that point. I was working at I was working at BET full time. I had my own, obviously all hip hop, and then I was freelancing. So all that money was just it was great money, man. Like the writing money back then was very, it was solid. It was solid.
Dollar word. Oh, you was getting $1.50, Jerry?
$1.50, but I ended at $1.50. But a dollar a word was good.
Dollar a word was good money back then. Trust
me. Yeah,
real good money.
Yeah, so that's where I was, man. I was doing a family thing. I mean, I was locked in, super locked in, and then everything was kind of really good at that point for me, for real.
And Jesus, you said
obviously,
more established.
Yeah, it just happened now. So obviously, like we were both established. So like I said, we were financially secure, thankfully, and ready for this. So
yeah. So did being a dad impact your ability to do? You mentioned the show conflict, the hours, because I know when Justin was born, I was at the source, and those closings used to give my wife fits because I'd be out so late. And, there are things I definitely feel like I missed with him because I was working there. Did you ever feel that way with working, balancing?
I mean, I'm a parent of the pandemic, right? So, and my wife works at another streaming service, and we were blessed to, while everyone was, the world was crumbling around us, we were at home like in a daze with this child. And we were both, either taking paternity, maternity, but also still working from home, and, still working from home. And I know that wasn't it was just this, it's something that never will happen again, right? Hopefully, pandemic. But I think what we do is we still have a nanny, but also like during the day, we call it second shift. So we work during the day and we take a break, do some mindless TV, and put her to bed, and then start a second shift at 10 p.m. working on the next set of things. So yeah, the pandemic was really, really blessed. I mean, it's weird to say, but it really was a blessing for us, a blessing in disguise as parents.
How was parenting during the pandemic for you and Rob, for you and Chuck?
For me, it was tough in a different way. I mean, my kids are grown at this point. So my oldest is 16, my youngest is 13. So I was definitely concerned about school. I wasn't sending them to school. At a certain point, they had the option to go into school or do remote learning, but I never felt like the DOE in New York had their stuff together to where I felt like safe to send my kids to school. So I was just concerned with them, getting the right education, B, getting that socialization, just hanging out with your friends. Like, I got pretty good and mild mannered kids, but man, go out there, go get into a little trouble, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like go, you know, ride your bike to some place you're not supposed to ride your bike to, or you know what I'm saying, whatever. Just like normal stuff that kids do, I feel like they missed out on. So it was kind of hard, just trying to navigate and keep things normal for them. But the blessing was, because of the industry that we work in and it's late nights, you know, most nights I'm not home in time for dinner, so I don't eat dinner with my kids. But, you know, like just simple things like being at the dinner table with them every night. And, you know, we might keep the TV on, but it'll be the news, and be able to talk about the things that are going on and be able to hear their opinions on the world and what's going on with the pandemic and what's going on with the election and what's going on politically. And, you know, a lot of times we'd be finished dinner and me and my oldest son would just stay talking for like an hour after dinner and just picking. And I'm like, wow, this dude got his own thoughts and views on the world. That's crazy. There was sometimes I wanted to wring his neck with kind of some of the things that he said or some of the views that he had. Right. But, you know, I kind of respected his mind and the way he saw things. So that was the blessing, and the togetherness was definitely dope.
Yeah, we went through a lot of changes through the pandemic. You know, me and my daughter, I can't say everything, but there were a lot of circumstances, and we just started doing counseling together, the two of us, weekly, and it was great, man. I mean, really, I consider, I hate to say it, but the pandemic is a horrible thing, but we got a lot closer to each other. We got a lot closer to family. So it was kind of between here and where my family is in Virginia. So my daughter spent the majority of the pandemic with me. Most a good bulk of it with me for various reasons. And it was a challenge. My daughter's a teenager and as well. And so she, you know, like Rob said, she has her own views, thoughts, her own music now, you know, so when she's playing some stuff, I'm like, yo, can you turn that off, or can you put your AirPods on or something? Because I could used to trust her with the aux. Now I can't. I don't know, man. It's real shaky around here, man. And I feel bad too, because I introduced her to Lil Durk. Now she playing Lil Durk. I'm like,
I mean, you introduced him like physically,
literally,
actually introduced her to him. Wow.
Now she likes him. I'm like, I said, you're supposed to like Kendrick. I'll introduce you to Kendrick. Yeah, you know, so she loves Lil Durk. But overall, man, the pandemic, you know, we did a lot of walks, a lot of working out together, a lot of, you know, everything, man, from, you know, tutors, like, you know, like Rob said, man, she missed 2 proms. Like, that's crazy, man. Like, those are
class of 2020 caught the raw deal. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, so speaking of the music, what is the music introduction process in these houses where your career is music and introducing the world to artists? How have you taken that approach with your kids?
Well, I try my best. I did my best, man. I tried my best to steer her in the right direction. But it's a different day, man. They have their own minds. She appreciated, like when Biz Markie died, I said, yo, Biz did. She like, I know Biz is. And when Prodigy died, I said, Prodigy is. I know who Prodigy is. So she knows what's up, but she still has her music, and I can appreciate that. And we have long conversations. She's like, yo, you don't know the little baby. He got this, he got that. I'm like, all right, cool. I like him too, but you know, we have spirited debates. But as far as the introduction wise, you know, I made sure my daughter knew the foundation. She thinks DMC is her uncle and all that, you know, taking selfies and pushing me out the picture. You know what I'm saying? But I respect her views and her mind as it relates to music, and obviously that's reflective of myself and her mother. Her mother's on the R&B side, so she has a great appreciation of good R&B too.
What about you, Rob?
Yeah, for me, it was like I always had hip hop around. There was just no hiding You know, what I did early on was I tried to just play the edited stuff. I would play the radio, or, you know, I would get, if there were certain albums that I loved where I knew we was like going on a long car trip or something like that, I just get the edited version to keep in the car.
Mm.
But they knew when they were little, like they knew who Biggie was. Like, they knew who Jay was. You know, it's funny, even today, like there's Jay songs that I know my sons had never heard because it's just before their time. But when they hear their voice and they hear their style, they be like, oh, that's Jay. Oh, that's Big. Like they could actually recognize style without ever having heard the song. I remember having a funny conversation with my youngest son, Eli. He was maybe 5 or 6 years old at the time, maybe. I forget his age, but the Carter 4 was out, and I had the CD in the car. And if you remember the CD cover, it was Lil Wayne as a kid with the graduation cap on and the tattoos on his face. So they had known Lil Wayne because they knew the records, but they had never quite seen Lil Wayne. And my son picked up the CD cover in his car. He was like, "Oh, Dad, that's Lil Wayne?" I said, "Yeah." He was like, "Oh, so he's a kid like me." Because the cover was how Wayne is presently. So that was funny. They was always into it. But my youngest son is more, I mean, you know, I've taken him to see Kendrick at MSG. Like, I've taken him to see Drake, and when Drake and Migos went on tour. So Drake is probably my youngest son's favorite. He's into Kendrick. He's into Travis Scott. He likes more hip hop. I think he's like his dad. He likes more of the stuff that says something. Like sometimes, like I remember one time I was in the car with him and Lil Pump came on. This was years ago, Gucci Gang. So I figured, all right, the kids like Lil Pump. I ain't want to be the corny old man. So I turned it up, and I'm turning up with him because I thought that's what they was into. And he was like, "Dad, can you please, like, yo, this is garbage." Like, put on the Kendrick CD, and I was trying to relate to him, and I'm like, yes, like, okay, yeah, like the kid has taste. My oldest son is into it too, but it's funny what streaming does because he just goes down this wormhole of he's in the 80s music, a lot of like 80s rock and 80s pop, and he'll just have a playlist that he makes of just like 80s stuff, which is crazy to me. I'm like, how'd you even discover this? But he just goes down the streaming wormhole, and then I look at his playlist and there'll be like, Ready to Die stuff on there, so he'll throw in a little Biggie, but he really likes like the classic stuff. So it's cool. I just let them kind of be. I don't preach to them. I let them just, listen to what they like, because they're gonna do it anyway.
Right. Jesus, how is music being introduced to your young daughter in your house?
Yeah, I mean, she's named after Selena, so literally that was the first. Como la Flor, we played her music first as soon as she was born. I had it on my phone, and then she has her own playlist now. It's music videos, so it's a mix of like Tribe and a lot of J Balvin, because music videos are very colorful. A lot of Latin videos because we're colorful people, so it's very bright colors. I do have a funny story though. I was waiting outside of, like, I was double parked waiting for my wife to go out to get something from a friend's house. And there was a guy, and the baby was in the back. She was months old, and some guy was playing some, like, I don't know what artist it was, but it was like just loud and vulgar. And I'm texting my wife. I'm like, "Yo, can you hurry up? Like, there's a guy here behind me playing some vulgar music." And then she's like, "All right." And then she gets to the car. She's like, "You do know what you do for a living, right? Like, you do know you listen to like Latin trap." And I was like, "Yeah, but that's different. It's not in English." And I was like, it's literally the same thing. But I definitely had a dad brain where I'm like, I can't listen to this. I even remember telling like Bad Bunny's people were like, "Oh yeah, I have her on your playlist." They're like, "You really shouldn't have Bad Bunny on your playlist, on your daughter's playlist." I was like, I guess you're right.
Hilarious. So I wanted to go to the next segment where I ask you, what was your relationship like with your dad? So who wants to start?
Well, I'll go.
Okay.
I say that because my dad passed away at a young age, younger age. He didn't make it to 50. So we had a great relationship, man. And it really tears me up that he's not here witness some of this, at least in the physical form. But
How old were you? How old were you?
I was 19.
Okay.
So my dad, he Run DMC was popping at the time. So my dad respected Run DMC a lot. He approved of them. He didn't approve of everything. Like, he didn't really like Michael or Prince. Wow. He liked Run DMC. Wow. He didn't necessarily dislike them, but he was a James Brown guy. You know what I mean? So he used to always tell us that James Brown was the godfather of hip hop and rap. You know what I mean? So he used to throw that, hip hop and soul, my bad. Hip hop and soul. So he's the godfather of everything. But I will say this, my dad was instrumental in how I became a dad. And it was really encouraging to be a better, like, not a better dad, but really strive to stand on his shoulders and uplift in a way that that generation didn't do. You know what I mean? Being a little more loving. Not that my dad wasn't loving, but that love manifested itself differently, back in the day, being there, coming to games, or when the bully, backing you up, you know what I mean? Things like that. But somebody said something to me that I'll never forget. It was actually my old preacher, and he said, you'll be lucky if you're half the man your dad was. And I took that as a challenge. I took that as a father, I took that as a challenge. As a man as well, but as a father, I took that as a challenge to really be like a stellar dad and a stand-up guy as well. And so I celebrate my dad a lot, man. People see I turned it down just a notch, as I did with even my daughter, just because things can be triggering, man. People might not have, you know what I mean? Like, some folks may not have their dad, or, they may not have a good relationship with their kids. So I dialed it back just a little bit, because sometimes I'm just thinking about that person or persons who may not have their dad or may not have that relationship. So, but yeah, I love my dad to death, man. I got some old videotapes I recently digitized, and I just started crying, man, because I was like, oh, it just tears you up. But it's a beautiful treasure that I'm going to share with my mom this weekend.
That's dope. Yeah. That's dope. Rob, what about you? What was your relationship like with your dad?
I got a great relationship with my pops, and my pops was present, thankfully, and he was there to talk to, like, really, really easy to talk to, really understanding, always there with guidance or a word or to help you figure something out. And I seen my dad through his ups and downs. Like, there was times when things were really good for my pops, and when things was really good for my pops, they were good for everybody else. And there was times when, like, I've seen him at his lowest points. And even, at being young, at 13, 14, I had to pick my dad up at his lowest points, whatever struggles, and he had struggles and things going on. I'm just be real, like addiction, like all of that stuff. And what I'll say about him, even at his lowest point, he was always there. He would do anything for his family and anything for his kids. And, that inspired me in a way. I'm like, there was times when he wasn't even right himself, and he would make sure we were right. You know what I'm saying? And we had everything that we need. I remember, and my dad always had, I remember one Christmas, he was waiting for a check, and he just ain't have it that year at all. But he got a check maybe Christmas Eve, like right before the banks closed and all of that shit, and went out to Flatbush Avenue and bought me and my brother some fake Timberland sweaters. And we knew they were fake. The only thing that kind of got me is my brother got the black one. So I'm like, all right, you can pass it off. He got me like a purple one, like a Barney purple fake Timberland sweater. And I tell you what, though, I rocked that with pride. Yep. I had a lot of fights over that sweater. Like, I'd go to school and then I would get teased. Yo, it was like, big, yo, that's the kid with the fake. Oh, why you punch me in my face? Stay in your place. Like, it was just like that. And so I was very proud and protective of my dad. And I just wanted to be really half the father, half the man that he was. And he inspired me a lot. And even when it came like to the music, like, he was of a different generation. He didn't really understand but we, you know, he learned hip hop through me. And then it was certain joints, he'd be like, yo, throw that on. Like, yeah, like he let us listen to whatever we wanted to in the car. Like, you know, so, you know, whether it was Nas, like Jay, Big, like, you know, he was with it, man. You know, I remember he took me to an Outkast concert when I was young, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So my pops was real cool.
Did he get to hear any of your music or see you perform ever?
Yeah, so my dad got to see me. No, actually, my dad got to see me perform a lot because even when I was in high school, I was coming up. I used to go to open mics at the New Eureka and Poets Cafe, and that was a big deal. And I never really wanted my parents to come because who want to bring their parents to that? Like this is like Mos Def performing, like right before Mos Def took off, like Black Thought, Common. On any given night, you would see these brothers in there who we really respected. But my dad was like, nah, I want to see you do your thing. Let's go. And I was like, all right, but I was proud of my dad. So I'm like, yo, he came through and he watched me do the open mics. But the really proud moment is after I dropped my first album, I got to perform it in the Barclays Center. And, you know, I got my mom, my dad, and my little brother some tickets as well as my sons. And they got to see that moment. They got to see me rocking the Barclays. So that was a big deal for me, at least, you know what I mean?
I gotta add something real quick.
Sure.
Back in the day, I used to rap, and my dad's car got into a small fender bender. Somebody rear-ended the Ford Escort that we had at the time, and he gave us the money for that, and we paid for our first demo back in the day. I still had the tape too.
Oh, that's fresh.
Yeah,
that's fresh. I
just had to throw that in there. From the Barclays to the demo tape.
Listen, man, but it ain't too late, baby. It's too late at the wake. So, you know, go ahead.
Yeah, true indeed. Facts.
Word. Jesus.
I only freestyle at a party. I was never as good as Rob. Just trying to impress a girl. It didn't work. Anyway, my relationship with my dad is complicated. I want to say it's very kind of like typical of like the immigrant experience because my dad was a provider, but he's coming from South America to Brooklyn, to strange land, doesn't speak the language, and he put his head down and like work. So he wasn't, you know, it was typical of like, he wasn't emotionally there. He wasn't like, you know, you want to talk about, you know, your feelings, and he's like, nah, go out there and work. Like, you know, my mom was there for that for me. Like, I would say the biggest thing I took from my dad was definitely work ethic. Like, he took me to work at 11 years old. My dad was a kosher butcher for over 30 years. He was also the superintendent of the tenement housing that we lived in. He was also a handyman. So as soon as I hit 11, he's like, you come to work with me. And I was on Sundays, I was, you know, cutting up meat and skinning chickens, getting paid, you know, $25 for the day. On Saturdays, I was, you know, sweeping up the yard in between the buildings, and, you know, I was picking up dirty diapers and used condoms because, you know, it's good, right? So, because people don't care. And I hated it. I hated doing it. And my father, I always sticks to me, even to this day, whatever things get rough in anything, he's like, I want you to do this now so you don't do it when you're my age. And that always stuck with me. And like I said, he wasn't emotionally there, but he showed me that. And wherever he lacked in the emotion, my mother was there to pick it up. My mother definitely had that, but my father was, he was a rough guy. Like, he was a roughneck. Like, I remember when I brought my wife home for the first time, my girlfriend, then like he started telling her about the fights he had. He's like, yeah, I remember. He's like, I took out my belt and this guy was bigger than me, so I wrapped the belt around my fist, and I started pounding on him. And I'm like, why are you telling my girlfriend? But yeah, so work ethic, and that's what I got from Pops. May he rest in peace.
When did your father pass, Jesus?
My father passed away last year, actually. Yeah, thank you. Not I mean, during the pandemic, not because of the pandemic. It's just he had a stroke right before I got married in 2007, and he never fully recovered because of his pride. I think he just never was like, nah, I'm not gonna. I don't need to. There's no rush for me to get better. And I'm like, no. The doctor said like within the first year you have to get better, if not that's it.
Right. Same thing. Yeah, my dad had a stroke in 2017 and he didn't recover. He was paralyzed on one side of his body. And we were trying to motivate him to, do the physical therapy. He was in a nursing home, but he was just like so depressed. Like he would go, we could tell his heart wasn't in it, literally and figuratively. Hey there. Hi.
Hey.
Hola.
What's up? How are you? She's like, who are these people? Yes, we're here talking about you.
Man, that's a beautiful age right there.
I know.
Yeah. Man, I missed that time.
Me too, yo, Jesus. Cherish that time. I know you do, but like it goes.
Her videos, right? Take a lot of videos, right?
Yes, because I forget the thing that triggers us is when we hear video of their voices when they were little, like particularly my son, when he was little, hearing him talk. I'm like, oh my God, this is how he used to sound. Yeah. That's the first thing I forget. So hearing that.
Because you're going to start fighting with them about last night, I got into it with my son. Like my son is taller than me now. Just past me. And he's taking out the garbage and I broke down a box. And I said, hey, throw this in recycling. And he looks at the bag. He was like, it can't fit. It's all full. But with an attitude, and I'm like, well, you're going to make it fit. Like, arguing about this. But he was like sizing me up at the same, like when he said it with an attitude. And I was like, oh, I might have to do it to him. It made me miss that age when it was just like they were so sweet and innocent and wasn't feeling themselves in such a way.
Yo, I gotta tell y'all about the time I tried to do that with my dad, boy. I try face my dad. My dad, it was like all of 3 seconds, and I was like a pretzel like this. It was crazy. It was so fast. And it was so fast, bro. And
you tried to swing on your pops?
I don't know what I don't really know what I tried to do. I really don't remember. I just know whatever I did, it was out of line. It was so quick, and he tore my hoodie. He didn't apologize to me, but he bought me a new hoodie. So I took that as an apology.
He had to hand you up real quick.
But you never did it again.
Never. I did one other thing. One time I balled my fist up. And he said, you better unball them fists. And I went like this. I was like, I kept my face though. And I was just like.
You try to Arthur meme him.
Yeah. Bruh.
He can do magic.
Nah. Real quick though, Jesus, man, like, and I don't know if I ever told you this, but I thought it was so cool that, there used to be this magazine for those that don't know, Fuego. I know you all remember Fuego. And it was cool. It was so ahead of its time for the Latinx culture. A lot of what's going on now, was like early documentation in that magazine. And Jesus had wrote an article in the magazine about his dad and the work ethic. I remember that.
It wasn't me because obviously it would have been conflict of interest. But yes, we did write an article. Another editor wrote it. And that was
about your dad.
About my dad. So it was actually pretty good. Yeah, about my dad. You're right. But I didn't write it. But I remember that day because we had to do a photo shoot with my dad at the butcher shop. And it was hilarious because classic dad, right? Because he's, they're taking pictures of him. And, if it's a photo session, right? It's like, even if it's like, just a normal person, they need different shots. We need different looks, blah, blah, blah. 45 minutes in, he's like, yo, are they gonna finish? I need to get back to work. Like, I can't do this. Like, he said, no, Dad, one more shot. He said, no, that's it. I'm done.
It's just like how Jay-Z do you when he come into a photo. Y'all got 20 minutes, man. Y'all don't get it in 20 minutes, y'all ain't gonna get it. Y'all got 15 minutes. No, I always remember that. And I thought it was so cool. I was like, oh, wow, like that, like you actually got to, even though you didn't write it, my bad for getting that part wrong. Okay. That y'all documented your dad, like it seems so personal in the magazines that we were reading at the time, Double XL, The Source, Rob, and I had never seen anything quite like that.
Yeah, that was it came up. It wasn't, I can't even take credit for the idea. It was a mix of Tony Trivino and this guy B Bravo. They came up with the idea sort of, and then they were like, Jesus, isn't your dad like a butcher. Like it's because it's such a weird story, right? Like he's a guy from Ecuador, a kosher butcher for over 30 years. His English actually ended up he sounded like a mix of Scarface and Hasidic Jewish person, because it was very like that's what he grew up was around, but he was also like a very tough guy. So his hands were like full of callus and were sausages because of and again he was like shorter than me, but I'd see him lift like 500 pounds like it was nothing. Like he had that Incan strength. So
it's funny that you mentioned interviewing your dad, because I remember interviewing a mutual friend of ours, Liz, her dad. I interviewed her dad because he was a mall Santa. When I was at the Urban Daily, I was like, yeah, I would love to talk to somebody who was actually a Santa Claus. And she's like, my dad was a mall. I'm like, for real? So I actually got to interview him and I learned so much about what goes into being a mall Santa. That was the flyest thing ever. I was like, oh, snap. Hold on one second. I want to let them know we're.
Are you rapping?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So if you want to catch this tail end. So Dad, what kind of influence did your dads have on your fatherhood? And what does it mean to be a good father to you?
Well, I think nowadays it's important to be intuitive and emotional, loving. I think some of the things that go along with being fatherhood are things that I picked up from my dad, just being a protector, being a sturdy person, being a man of your word, a person of your word. And then I think nowadays, I believe kids are a little different now, and they need you to be a little more nurturing. I think we need to tap into our sensitive side and really be able to talk to our kids about things that maybe were assumed when we were young. So the birds and the bees talk was really hard back in the day, but now I think you have to have those kinds of conversations and make it not as awkward. Some of the things that I wanted to discuss with my daughter didn't happen, but that was, her mother objected to. But things around, female, things and whatnot. And
did she object to the topic, or she objected to you having the conversation?
She objected to me having the conversation completely. Okay. But I have joint custody of my daughter, so I have her and have had her from since the divorce half the time. I didn't want something to happen on my watch that I wasn't equipped to deal with. But I just say all that to say that this is a different time than when we grew up. I think kids have different needs. I love being a millennial dad of sorts. When I say that, I don't mean age-wise, but I just mean an early adopter of technology. So anytime my daughter's ever tried to get over on me, I mean, any and every time she's tried something slick, it's always resulted in me knowing ahead, almost being like a step ahead or right behind her. You know what I mean? So it helps, man. So, as far as my dad is concerned, he gave me the values of just being that sturdy guy. That's like the best word I can use for him, really being a good guy. To this day, I hear stories about my dad from where I'm from in Delaware. And I love that, that people teach. He was a teacher and a carpenter. So I hear, people he built things for, people he taught. I'm always getting feedback from people about how good he was. And I try to take that and put it right into me being a father.
Nice. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, for me, for my dad, I just learned, I think, being present and providing. I've watched my dad work 2 jobs. I don't know when my pop slept sometimes because he worked 2 jobs, one in the day, one at night. He would walk me to the school bus every morning. He would, and then when I got home from school, he maybe be home an hour or 2 after, and then take me out to the park to play basketball, me and my brother. He was always around and worked 2 jobs. So for me, it taught me to be present. And, I think being present is very important. Providing is very important. I take great pride, and I don't know if anybody else does it, if I'm just weird, especially with my smallest son, because again, my oldest son is bigger than me now. Sometimes like I can't even look at him. Like I'm just like my youngest son, like we'll be sitting at the dinner table and just watching my youngest son eat is a joy to me. Like, oh wow, like I provided that. Like seeing him just enjoy a meal. I don't know why, like that just hits me. You know what I'm saying?
You know who told me the same thing years ago, and this was part of the reason why I did the podcast too, is Ron Fest, who was a previous guest. I interviewed him like 10 years ago, and he told me I was watching my son eat cereal and the milk was just dribbling. And he said, it just told me he had more than enough. He had enough to spill.
Mhm.
And that filled him with some pride that he could provide for his son in that way. So I understand where you're coming from with that 100%.
Yeah, nah, that and then also trying to understand. My dad always tried to understand and try to be relatable, even the things that he didn't understand. If he didn't understand hip hop music, he tried to listen to Biggie, he tried to listen to Nas, he tried to listen to Jay, just to see where we was coming from. So even though I'm set in my ways and I would love for my kids to walk in my footsteps, I think every father kind of looks for that for their children. I pride myself in being able to sit down and listen and adopt and have them put me on the things that I wasn't up on, you know what I mean?
So, Jesus.
So I mean, to echo the same thing, so, provider is a big thing, and also humor. My dad was super funny and very inappropriate. Very inappropriate. I can't tell you things that he said, but he always saw the humor in things, and he was always like the guy that he was alive for the party, and I try to I try to find the humor in everything I do, even with the baby with Salo. Like, of course she's a baby right now, she finds everything funny, but yeah, like I feel like the humor and just being able to provide is such a big thing, especially for I can speak for myself, but like I come from meager surroundings and product of immigrants. I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here sometimes, like in my head, right? The whole imposter syndrome, right? But I'm like, no, I'm here, and I'm going to be able to provide for my daughter and have a legacy for her, and it's an amazing feeling. And that's whether my father was emotionally there, he wasn't, he gave me the tools, and I had other people around me, including my mother and my older sisters, to be like, all right, this is the type of man you're going to be. And that's where I am today.
All right. So I'm gonna close. My last question is gonna be, tell me about a time where you feel like you nailed it as a dad.
I don't have a time. I don't know.
Well, oh my God, that's
let them think about it, because they have longer tenures in this game. So I'll go first. It's very simple, but sleep training. So baby Selena, she goes to sleep between 7:30 and 8:30. She's up right now, so she's going to sleep soon. But 7:30 or 8:30, right. I have a magic hand. I don't know what it is. I put on a little bit of music. I kind of like put her. We have a routine. Dress her, change the pamper, and I just lay her very slowly. I say some words in Spanish to her, some inspiring. I literally say, you're going to be, in Spanish, I'm like, you're going to be a successful and inspiration, but above all, you're going to be a good person. I put her to bed, and then I leave, and she doesn't get up till 8 o'clock in the morning. So that's I'm like, yo, I'm doing it.
You are killing it. You are killing it, for real.
I thought of mine.
Okay.
I was gonna say when I took her to the BET Awards, but that's that's not a fatherhood thing. That's that's a stunt thing. You know what I mean, like a clout thing. But as a teenager, that was a good move for her at that time. But as a dad, here's the one. She when she was young, she was playing with her head is like upside down. She put a quarter in her mouth, and she started choking on the quarter, really bad. So I'm there, and then like it all started to move in slow motion at that point. So I look over at her mom, and her mom just loses it, starts like flat out panicking. And my first impulse was, I looked at her, I was mad, like, panicking? What? We don't panic. What are you doing? And within seconds, I flip my daughter over, run her to the bathroom. I'm pounding her on the back. And finally that quarter comes out of her mouth, hits the sink, and her life is saved. I'm pretty convinced, I'm positive I like saved her life in that instance. I know I did. I still have that quarter, and I still have that quarter, and I'm my daughter's hero. In fact, she a few years ago in her whatever grade school, wasn't kindergarten, but like first, second grade. I don't have that in front of me. She said she wrote a report, and it was like, "Who's your hero?" And I was her hero. And then just this year, she gave me this, and it says, "I'll always be your little girl, and you'll always be my hero." And I said, "Yo, I don't know if this is real. Are you trying to make me cry, or you trying to get over on me? I don't know, but whatever it is, I'm never taking this bracelet off." So, yeah, man, I'm ready to tear up right now just talking about it.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Rob, I know you've thought of one by now, as good a dad as you are.
That's an amazing story. I don't know that I have, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know I'm a good father, like, you know what I'm saying? But I'm always like, am I doing it right? Like, I'm an overthinker by nature. So, man, I just hope I don't mess them up so bad. You know what I mean? I guess the most is they're really good students, both of them. Honor roll, Dean's List, straight A, and every report card every time. So, and even that, I give the credit to them. I give a lot of credit to their moms too, but more so, and just looking back at it, is like, okay, like I gave them the runway, maybe, or I provided the runway for them to take off and be their best self. Is probably where I take the most pride, where I feel the most like, okay, we're doing something right here. But I find every day as a challenge, and I just want to give them so much and provide for them so much, so their life could be easier and they could really just take off. So I'm always overthinking that, but probably when they bring home their report cards and hit me in a couple of years. My son he's a junior in high school. He's getting ready for college. So if we get this college thing straightened out, like, I think I'll be able to sleep easy.
Let's talk about that, because my son just finished his first year, and it's great. It's a challenge. You work all those years saving up and everything for them to get to that point, and then to see them achieve that, it's great. So trust me, I got some pointers for you. So, gentlemen, I'm going to conclude there. Thank you so much for coming through and having this great conversation. I learned a lot. I've known you all for years, but I learned so much about you that I didn't know. So I'm glad. I'm sure everybody listening to this has as well. This has been Fathers Who Bother, episode 50, with Rob Markman, Jesus Trivino, Chuck Creekmur, and me, your host, Jerry L. Barrow. We will be going on hiatus for a little bit to regroup, but season 3 is forthcoming. Thank you for rocking with us this far. And we would be nothing without you here as guests and you listening. So I'm appreciative from the bottom of my heart. Fathers Who Bother, we are dad as we want to be. Have a good night.
Thank you. We made it.
Peace.
I've been looking at these podcasts for years, and I'm like, finally, I'm on there.
All right, gents. Have a good night, and I'll see you on the internets.
Yep. Team Locks. Let's go.
Oh, yes.
Team Locks.
Versus.
I agree. But I don't know, man. Showmanship is everything, so we'll see.
We'll see.
Harlem gonna put on the show.
Yeah. All right, fellas.
All right, yo. Thank you. It was an honor, man. Peace. If you're enjoying Fathers Who Bother, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at Fathers Who Bother and Twitter at Fathers Who Be. Thanks.